Okay, so here's this next one, and this is gonna be a real meal for us because we're both in a Vanderpump Rules, but I think we're both also we do like a little bit of scandal. This is very dark for me. This whole thing that's going on with Billie Lee versus Tom Sandoval, his girlfriend Victoria, and Kyle Chan. Do you wanna set the stage for this?
Sure. So there's been like break in the friendship between Billy Lee and Kyle Chan and Tom Sandoval, and then obviously his girlfriend. And so Billy Lee went on. Was she on her own podcast?
She has a podcast, yeah, Billie and the
Yeah,
Kid, and she had on, she's this co-host that was, like, interesting. She was kind of, like, matching Joe and interrupting a little bit. Joe's hard to top, but it was like, "Okay, this is I feel like Billie's spilling some tea, and, like, we gotta get everyone quiet time." Some other comedian who seems to be completely unaware that they're about to, like, get into this whole, like, drug accusation and all this other stuff is there, and she's, like, just rolling with the punches, and then Joe came out halfway through, and she was able to speak on Schwartz talking about her on Jackson Brittany, their pod.
yeah. So I think what happened was like Joe was on a podcast, somebody else's podcast, and she had mentioned that Billy Lee and Tom Sandoval were not friends anymore.
On
And
Rachel's podcast,
okay, on Rachel's podcast or
I
Rocky,
think.
I think. I think she goes by Rocky now.
Oh, I know, this is so dumb. Like, the poor girl, like, writes down a fucking nickname and everyone's like, "Ooh, like, she's changing her name again." It's like, "Shut up."
So, yeah, Joe had said that Billy and Tom weren't friends anymore, and then Victoria commented on a post about that and was like, "Billy isn't the one that set the boundaries." So then there was, like, this controversy, right? And so Billy felt like she needed to set the record straight on her own podcast. So she went on the podcast and she spills the fucking beans or the tea, whatever. And her story is that Tom Sandoval and his girlfriend Victoria are in a very, very dark, toxic, unhealthy, drug fueled, alcohol fueled relationship. And so she kind of does like really lay it out there.
I know, but I wanted more details.
I know. It's the sick part of my brain.
I know, I'm like, "But no, but, like, what kind of drugs?"
I
Like,
know.
I need to know.
So apparently they're like partying all night, sleeping all day to the point where like the house is a mess. The animals like aren't being cared for, he's missing meetings at work and business opportunities and whatnot. So Billy took it upon herself to set up like an intervention for Tom with the help of Kyle Chan. This is Billy's part of the story. And so they left Victoria out of it, obviously, because she is, in Billy's mind, part of the problem. And then Tom, like, never showed up for the intervention because he doesn't feel well. I guess every day he doesn't feel well, which does sound like somebody who is maybe suffering from mm, a drug and alcohol problem if you can't get up during the day.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was Billy's story, was that they're having serious problems and Billy had to kind of separate herself from that. And then Victoria and Kyle logged on. They did an interview with a man with the whitest teeth I've ever seen in my fucking life. I couldn't even watch the screen because Adam's teeth were so white. And so they kind of just tell the opposite side of that story, that Billy is the one that was the real problem, creating like drama and issues for Tom and Victoria. Victoria's like, I don't even do drugs. We're not doing drugs. Everything is fine, which I think is interesting because one of the things that we learned from Tom Sandoval is that like essentially he was looking for somebody who would do drugs with him. Like he like kind of said that out loud, and that was why he wasn't interested in Ariana anymore, because they weren't having fun. And fun to Tom is going out and like eating a bunch of ecstasy or shrooms. So it's hard for me to believe Victoria's side of this story.
Yeah. Well, Victoria's like Victoria, God bless her heart, like, because she does say in the interview that she has a TBI
Yeah.
from a really serious car accident, and so she has problems with, like, recall, and sometimes she stutters or slurs her words a bit, because Billy's whole thing was that, like and Victoria would, like, call me at, like, 2 in the afternoon, like, slurring her words, like, telling me she hates Tom Sandoval, like, in Tom Sandoval's house, like, knowing that I'm Tim Sandoval's best friend. She's like she would call me like she was my friend, which I thought was such an interesting insight because, like, that is, like, that's a type of person, who, like, dates
Oh,
your
yeah.
friend and then thinks they can, like, shit talk your friend to you, and you're like, "No." Like, "Why are you I barely know you, bitch." And so that's just very interesting, but she's trying to, like, say, like, "And guess what next?" Like, "And you know what? I'm just gonna go there." And, like, they never go anywhere.
They
Like,
never go
there's
anywhere.
so many things where I'm like, "Okay, like, this is all gonna like, we're about to get off, we're about to go off here," like, and then, like, fucking nothing.
No, the one bit of, like, intel that they did drop is incredibly fucked up, and I don't even really know how we wanna talk about that, but l there's accusations against Kyle for trying to, like, take advantage of Tom. This is from Billy's mouth, that Kyle
Well
had.
well, this is from Victoria, who's saying that she thought that Billy like, who said that Billy said this to her, and she was hoping that the living room camera was gonna be on to, like, capture everything that was said,
Yeah.
which I was like, "I don't like that." I
No,
don't
I
like
don't like
people
that.
having a camera that records sound in their house like that. But she was saying that, yeah, Billy Lee told her that to be careful or that she doesn't trust Kyle Chan because Kyle Chan allegedly was trying to drug Tom and sexually assault him.
Yeah, that is, like, really, really fucked up, and obviously, like, I don't know what's true and what's false. It seems like an extraordinary claim, and that is going to require some extraordinary evidence, which Victoria could not produce. She made it seem like she was about to show us the camera footage from the kitchen, and then she's like, "Oh, but actually, for some reason, it wasn't recording." And it's like, "Oh, okay, well, that seems kinda convenient." And again, it's such a touchy subject that, like, I don't want to, I don't know. If it's true, then that needs to be taken care of, like, a legal process. And if it's not true, it's a fucked up thing to make up.
Well, yeah, but also I don't even know if I believe Victoria that
No, I don't either.
Billy even said that. Like, I just don't know. I've never particularly cared for Billie Lee or trusted her, like, that was someone that I was open to being a great character on the show when she first came on, but, like, same with, like, sort of, there's been a bunch of character like Vale. Like, you're sort of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Okay." But, yeah, Billy's shown herself to be a little bit of a thirsty bud, and, like, just, uh
I think she's shown herself to be thirsty and maybe like a hanger oner kind of thing. And I think she chose the wrong side in the Scandival situation. But she's been around for so long that if she was somebody who is inclined to do this level of, like, meddling and manipulation and story creating and takedowns, I think we would have seen that already.
Yeah, I think that they do actually for everything that we think like, "Oh, no, they've said this or they said that," like, this is the closest I think we've ever gotten to scratching the surface of what's really wrong with some of these people,
Yeah.
and that's interesting, there was also the big accusation that Billy had asked Tom for his sperm because she wanted to have a baby. And I guess she started going around, like, telling people that he said this and, like, that she was gonna have his take his sperm or whatever. Then Karamo from Queer Eye ran into Kyle Chan and said, like, "Oh, I heard we have, like, a little one possibly coming on the way or something," and Kyle Chan's like, "So she's been telling people that Tom was gonna," and I'm like, that's so small beans on the list of, like, you know what I mean? That's just someone being a loudmouth, like,
Not only is that small beans, but it also, again, it just feels like if this was something she was up to, like, and was talking about and people were, like, privy to that information, we would have seen Dumois, Page Six, whoever, like, Tom and Billie Lee have been, having a relationship and there's a baby on the way. So it just feels very convenient to me that somehow all of this has stayed contained until Victoria wanted to let it out. It kind of feels to me like maybe Victoria is doing a little fan fiction here.
it does feel that way, right? Well, I mean, I think Billie Lee did open a little bit of a can of worms, especially when she started talking about Victoria, who
Yeah.
does seem like she has a little bit of a personality situation going on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in that, like, she just doesn't feel above this. Like,
No.
I don't think you'd ever catch me on camera refuting allegations like this from someone who's, like, pretty widely not believed.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the other, because did you watch Billy's response to Kyle and Victoria's interview?
her being like, "I've been on set
Yeah.
all day, and I've just been taking screenshot after screenshot, and I'm just gonna go over everything, and then I think I'm gonna get into the studio, and I'm just gonna tell it all exactly like it is for what it is. Like, I have receipts, and so
But I'm on set right now.
but I'm on set," and I'm like, "On set for what?"
I
Like,
know, I know,
and
I
I guess
know.
I took to from this all too that Billie Lee does stand up now?
Apparently, she's a fucking stand-up comedian who's on tour.
Yeah.
That I didn't know, but, one of the things other than her being on set, the other important thing that she mentioned, I think, was that, she's like, I didn't bring up these allegations. You guys brought them up about Kyle maybe trying to take advantage of Tom. And so she's like, you're the ones that are making that information public and putting it online and talking about it. I didn't do that shit. And she's right.
Like, there's very little refuting of the actual claims that were made, and there was so I mean, I honestly felt for the guy, Adam, because even when it was so weird when he went people don't get asked for their sperm like that often. That's, like, not a really common thing. Like, 2 people have asked me, and I'm like, "Okay, okay, like, Mr. Sperm, like, congratulations on on those asks." But because like, that's kind of a lot too, if it never happens. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting that he couldn't seem to get them to answer a question. Like the way they would just sort of move the ball, even on the way they'd fight or clearing out the bedroom. Because one of the big things that Billy first alleged is that, like, Victoria is like a jealous monster. Like, she thinks everyone's trying to get with Tom Sandoval, which, like, you did see a little bit in their interview where she was like, "I think Billy wants to get with Tom." And it's like, believe it or not, girlfriend, not a lot of people are trying to get with Tom Sandoval right now. Like, I think he's all yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like interesting to watch that the way that they just sort of would so Billy said that Victoria became really, like, upset that the master bedroom was still full of Ariana's stuff because she wanted to sleep in the master bedroom with Tom, which is like, "Ew." Like, you have all these other bedrooms in the house, like, just set up another one like the master bedroom. Like, I'm sure there's, like, a bedroom with, like, a like, with, like, a half bath in it or something.
Not to mention, she keeps talking about how she just bought this big, beautiful house. It's like, why is anybody even at the fucking Ariana Tom house then?
Her money has to be family money, right? Like, she said at some point, like, I mean, no, I mean, like, I'm not saying she doesn't hasn't booked modeling gigs in her past, but, like, a big campaign that would be enough to buy her a house feels unlikely.
Well, and I don't think she's 31 now. She started modeling when she was 18. Like, I don't know. I've never seen this chick. I don't know this chick. I don't know what kind of big campaigns she would have been in the last decade.
Right, I feel like it would be like a former Leonardo DiCaprio ex face of Dior perfume, like, is with Tom Sandoval. Like, there it's just when someone's description is just like model, like,
Yeah,
what is she
like
doing, websites?
I
Like for
don't know.
clothing for websites? Like,
I have no idea. And yeah, I just like how much is she living off of past money?
Victoria claims that she didn't have anything moved out of Ariana's room or whatever, but then Billie Lee gets on and says, "You're right. Technically, you didn't get the stuff out of the room. One of like Tom's assistants hired movers to come in and move it for you. So like technically you're right, you didn't touch it." But she also said something about how Tom was so worried about Victoria finding something to do with her life because she was just like aimless, that he thought that hiring an assistant to like get her out of bed and like make her be productive would be the thing to like solve her problems.
That made no sense to me, but I could see Tom having that sort of nonsense logic.
Well,
Like,
that's totally Tom logic. I mean, what do you
yeah,
think Anne was? Do you
right.
know what I mean? Like Anne was running that house. Like, she was more than just a house manager. I mean, I feel like she really was like Tom just sort of walks around the world like a spoiled child all day, except for when Anne comes in and is like, "What do you want to do with the bills?"
Yeah, yeah, no. She seemed more like less of like a talent manager and more of just like a 24-hour housekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah, like a
But
house
yeah,
manager.
I don't understand the logic of like, and then that's kind of like there's a little bit of a discrepancy there because it's like so was at one point was Victoria the only one sleeping all day and Tom was still getting up and doing stuff and then eventually Tom started sleeping all day too. You know what I mean? It's like a little bit of a weirdness in that
It
story.
sounds like they crashed out at the beginning a lot because do you remember when Tom was late for Nick? Oh, well, because Billy said also in the chat that when Victoria kept saying, like, I don't do drugs, I don't do drugs. Victoria said that Billy said in the chat, in the live chat, that Victoria it does Xanax.
I could see that.
And so, I mean, I have an idea of like what they're probably doing all night and like why they're sleeping all day. But
Right.
it sounds like, that sort of combo, and yeah, I think that maybe at the beginning of the relationship, because Billy said that Tom started drinking for Victoria again,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they probably partied too much, and do you remember how Tom showed up late to Nick Viall's podcast and was like, "Hey, no, I'm good."
I
Like,
have been saying since like last season, and I mean a little bit before then, but since all of this like Sandoval stuff has happened, like I have been clocking Tom as somebody who is in the midst of like just a very long bender to the point where maybe it's now a problem. So I I don't know. I don't want to. I don't really know this Victoria chick, and I don't want to confuse her TBI symptoms with a drug problem, but I'm just saying like it would not surprise me. I think Tom has a very serious drug problem and like I said at the beginning, he made it known himself that he wants to be with a girl that wants to go out and eat Molly and do shrooms. So then it kind of invalidates what you're saying to me that you don't do drugs.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you were the one who pointed out to me that didn't he have, like, a routine with Rachel that she says was, like it was, like, a ceremonial thing that they used to do before and why she felt groomed?
Yeah, it was like she had a sex therapist on her podcast. And so she kind of really got into like some detail about their intimate life together and she says that there was yeah like a ceremony before they would have sex and it was like 2 shots of whiskey and like a finger dab of molly and they would like put on a song and then they would have sex and she made it seem like this was every single time like which I don't even understand like are you guys waking up in the morning and doing this like I don't get it but it seems like drugs and alcohol are a pretty big part of Tom's life. I also don't believe that he was ever actually sober.
I think he was doing other things, definitely, at least if he was off alcohol, because, I mean, Billy seemed to be really, like, legit about and I know people were trying to be, like, catching Tom, like, lifting another glass, but, like, the guy does have self-control, like, to some extent, and, like, if
Yeah.
he was secretly drinking, he wouldn't be doing it on camera. But I actually do believe he was sober from alcohol and just using everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what more so what I mean is that it wasn't like a strict thing, you know what I mean? Where, like, if he wanted to have a drink, he was gonna have a drink.
Right. Yeah. Well, the one last thing I saw was someone that I wanna mention is someone was theorizing that remember when Tom and Rachel were at that 4th of July party or whatever, and it was when Ariana's grandma died, and, like,
The Sheena
Ariana said
vlog
what?
from Sheena's vlog?
No, maybe it was this, but I think they talked about it on the show or somewhere after, but, like, on the all the podcasts during Scandoval about how it was so weird to people that when Ariana's grandma died, Tom was pretending he couldn't get an Uber or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, and Ariana said that the night that he got home, she didn't really, like, talk to him about it, and some people, I think on Reddit maybe, were theorizing that that could have been, like, why she wasn't talking to him. It's like he came home, like, really fucked up and knew that it was gonna be, like, a lost cause to even have
Oh,
a
yeah.
conversation with him, which is, like,
That
so
makes sense.
sad.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, though.